Sawasdee. Hello everyone. On behalf of the Office of Insurance Commission Thailand and TechSauce Media, I would like to welcome you to the Thailand InsurTech Fair 2021. The topic we have for today is Every Tech for InsurTech เทคโนโลยีประกันภัยเชื่อมไปสู่ทุกอุตสาหกรรม My name is Jarae Sithiwong, Senior Associate at Baker McKenzie, Thailand, focusing mainly on InsurTech and digital insurance, and I will be the moderator for today's session. It is my honor to have with us today the three speakers who have been driving the InsurTech movement in Thailand. Please allow me to begin with an introduction of our three speakers. The first speaker we have is Nadia Suttikulpanich, Head of Fuchsia Innovation Center, Muang Thai Life Assurance. Nadia drives development and engagement between people and business through innovation from both tech and non-tech perspectives. Nadia wants to change the paradigm of insurance by making it more accessible and inclusive. Some notable projects include Asia's first dynamic pricing health insurance coverage for diabetic patients, the first life insurance in Thailand to link health insurance benefit to telemedicine service as a completely cashless experience. The second speaker we have is Jarae Gray, Principal of Cenfri. Jarae leads the resilient team at Cenfri and is focused on how to improve the resilience of both individual and enterprise. Jarae also has been conducting and managing research across a range of content areas throughout the developing world, and a number of projects work in the area of insurance, retail payments, the measurements of financial inclusion, and regulating for innovation. And the third speaker we have with us is Thanapoom Chareonsiri, co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of AppMan. Thanapoom is a co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of AppMan Company Limited, a Bangkok-based technology company under Intelligent Working Process Framework, focusing mainly on digital innovation in insurance. Thanapoom has created an advanced digital point of sale platform, AgentMate, to serve the needs specifically for the life insurance industry, and is also a board member of the Center of InsurTech Thailand, the Office of Insurance Commission. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today, Nadia, Jarae, and Thanapoom.
Sawasdee. Glad to be here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I think today we have a very interesting topic, very current in the Thai insurance industry as well. We know that the OIC has been extremely supportive of InsurTech movement in Thailand, and I think this is a great opportunity for us and for the audience to really hear more about InsurTech from someone who has direct experience in this field. Just a few housekeepings. The audience can feel free to submit any questions you have in the chat box, and we'll pick the questions to address it during the session. Just to begin, our first question. Although we have heard a lot about InsurTech in Thailand, but how exactly does it connect to the current business ecosystem? May I ask Nadia about your thought on this?
Actually, I just had another session that talks exactly about this point. We kind of like see in the past that insurance is kind of like a standalone thing that often is an afterthought for a lot of people, right? And it's quite difficult for them to understand. So in terms of a storytelling, the narrative is completely outside people's daily life. So if you imagine in a person that has one wallet, right? You're asking them to kind of think very carefully on how to spend that money. So one might be sending the kids to school, one might be applying for trips, the other one might be thinking about how they're going to save to buy a new home, and etc. etc. And then insurance is kind of like another piece that a lot of times the story is you have to project in the future that certain risk might happen, and therefore you need to spend this money in order to secure that risk. But right now, I think in terms of technology that comes into play, we as an insurance industry is able to kind of weave in that storyline much tighter to everyday life and become part of the narrative of their everyday needs in a much better sense. And I'm saying this especially for health insurance, perhaps. And we see a lot during this pandemic as well, that people are starting to think a lot more about, certain things that might happen. But we can make it in such a way that you're not asking them to carve out or break their bank, right? You're allowing them to maybe gradually be inclusive in a way, and gradually kind of like put that a little bit aside to get the coverage that they need at that point in time, and not having to project so far in the future. So I think that that's something that's InsurTech as a technology and digital technology has allowed for the business to transform and be part of the ecosystem and be part of a life story in a much better, in a much more kind of seamless manner.
Thank you, Nadia. I think you raised a very interesting point that for going back many years ago, we think insurance is something that very difficult to relate to, but now we can really think of it as one of the tools that we can use in our daily life, and we can relate to it more because when we present that in such a way that it's more simple, easy to understand, and people can better relate with it. Kun Jeremy, on this point, do you think how simple insurance products is presented these days is a key factor to make people in the industry become more related to insurance, the concept of insurance?
Yeah, I mean, I think simplicity is really important, but I think to me, it goes a little bit beyond simplicity. And I think what Nadia said really resonates strongly, that increasingly, I think what InsurTech is enabling us to do is to shift the focus away from thinking about insurance as a product that we must sell and thinking rather about what do people need? And people need resilience. They need the ability to be able to respond to shocks. But responding to shocks or being resilient, there's a number of different tools that people use to do that. Like historically, you can use credit. In low-income communities, informal credit is probably the most prevalent source. Rely on family and friends, saving, etc. So when we shift that kind of lens of how we think about it, and rather start from what do people actually need, and think about it in that way, then suddenly the traditional financial silos begin to fall apart. And in fact, we're actually saying, if you want to frame it as a market, it's a market for resilience, and insurers are actually competing with credit providers and savings providers. But it goes beyond that, because if we think about risk and how people respond to resilience, it goes beyond financial products too. So it talks about, how can you do proactive risk management to mitigate or manage the risk from happening or limiting the impact of when that risk happens. So a lot of the work that we've been doing is looking at the SME sector and enterprises, and looking at what are the opportunities to bundle sort of fairly comprehensive risk management solutions together with more traditional insurance policies. So for instance, if you're looking at serving SMEs in the logistics or transport sector, they need proactive risk management in the form of tracking their trucks, doing fleet management, telematic solutions, which are easily and comprehensively, are a good fit in terms of bundling that with more traditional insurance products. But the point being is, what InsurTech is enabling us to do is to rather start from a perspective, what is the most appropriate tool, the most appropriate product for the consumers that we're trying to serve? And let's build from there. And consider insurance as an option, but one part of the bundle that we're offering to people to resolve that. And I think that's what's so exciting about the InsurTech space is technology is making many more of these things possible and feasible. but I think new entrants into the space are also thinking about it in a different way. And I think it's both of those components are critical to the success and what InsurTech's being able to do for the space.
Thank you, Kun Jeremy. I think that's a very good summary of what InsurTech can really do. And we know that it's almost like a phenomenon to the insurance industry in Thailand and elsewhere as well. On the InsurTech part, could I please ask Kun Thanapoom, what do you think are some key challenges faced by the businesses when adopting InsurTech or integrated InsurTech into the business?
Yeah, I think you put a keyword there. I think the keyword is adoption. And when we think of InsurTech as a technology that helps something, right? And you many times people think about, okay, we have to acquire this system or we have to build this platform. But usually a lot of times we don't think about adoption enough. So I think the technology side, or trying to acquire people or trying to get the right technology into the company or into the business is not actually the hardest part, but the main challenge is how to think in terms of adoption and impact. And so usually, when we think of, okay, we build this system and we go live, right? It's like a lot of work has already done, but that's actually not the case at all. When you just launch the system, it means you start with 0 user, right? Whatever you do. So you launch a new digital channel, or you set up a new claim automation system, right? But your user is 0. So how to get in many cases, it's a situation, right? How to convert the old ways, right, to the new platform, or to realize the impact that we want. Is about you have to think about adoption from the first day, and okay, when can I get my first 10 users or 100 users or 1,000 users, and improve and iterate. And if you can think in this perspective, then the challenge that we think that we have during the project implementation or during the technology acquisition is actually quite small. So I would say if we can set up a new goal, right? Rather than building or acquiring system, but the goal is to gain traction and user adoption, and this way we can see how InsurTech is not just IT, right? It's totally different story from boosting up your IT capability in your organization.
Thank you. I totally agree. I think it takes first of all, it takes a strong belief to really jump into the InsurTech field and nurture the technology, the InsurTech. Kun Nadia, speaking a bit about InsurTech in Thailand, we know that the insurance industry in Thailand has been quite traditional for many years, but recently they have changed and have embraced the concept of InsurTech. When working with other companies like InsurTech firms or other tech firms, have you came across any issues they have when they try to utilize or implement InsurTech, be it funding, be it talent or technology-wise?
I think I'll address this question into kind of like 2 different perspectives. One is from the traditional insurers, the other one is from an InsurTech firm, right? And there are so many in the market right now that makes the whole scene very exciting. But starting off from the incumbent or the traditional insurance company, what we see in the past, right? I think like as recent as like 3 years, 4 years ago, there has been somewhat of hesitant because the model is so new. And as Kun Thanapoom mentioned, right, a lot of times we're spending like evaluating who's the best person that I should kind of partner with, or will it be, you know, a sustainable model as such. But and I think those times, because especially from my side, I'm speaking more of a life and health because I'm from a life and health side. It is much trickier than non-life, right? Non-life is a very simple product. So you see a lot of movement at a much quicker speed than life. But I think right now, we cannot have that as an excuse anymore because now technology has kind of like catch up. And what Kun Jeremy said earlier, is not just about technology, it's about your creativity as well, how you design the product and how you kind of like make the narrative fit the storytelling that you want to achieve. So instead of like wasting time thinking whether or not this piece is the right fit, technology will constantly change. So in order for us to catch up, we need to be able to understand by doing, right? So if we can, the faster that we can implement, the sooner we will know what works or what doesn't work for us. So I think that's the perspective from the kind of insurer side. But on the other hand, on the, let's say, the challenge on the technology side is, I think the technologist or even the company who wants to touch into InsurTech really need to understand the needs of insurance, the basic structure or the fundamental. Because to be very honest, the word InsurTech is any tech that is designed for insurance, and it's not unique. You can use AI, you can use blockchain, you can use, you know, APIs, like all of these things, but it's just using it under the insurance industry or the insurance business case, right? So if anybody wants to jump in, I think one needs to make sure that you really have someone who understands. Otherwise, the insurance, it is very hard for the insurance company to partner with you, because they will be the one telling you the whole story, and then what's the difference between you and a simple technology vendor, right? So I think one needs to really kind of have that balance. You know, insurer needs to be a little bit more bullish in terms of like testing, trying, and getting our hands dirty, and then the technology company actually needs to maybe understand the need of the business more. Yeah.
Thank you, Nadia. Just a follow-up question. Do you think the current regulatory regime in Thailand is one of the factor to implement InsurTech, either by insurance company or by the InsurTech firms?
You mean like is it facilitating? Is that the question?
Yes, that's right.
I think it is. I think the OIC, you know, first of all, having this type of event shows that you know, they are committed with pushing the industry, right? They have various sandbox set up for insurance company and InsurTech company to really get their hands dirty, as I was saying before. Yep. But I think there's also room which can definitely improve, and how we can, you know, be a bit more bullish and really understand that I think very similar to insurance company, you need to do in order to understand. So a sandbox is a great way to kind of cage it, right? But how can we kind of work together from the insurer, from the technology company, and the OIC to speed things up? I think go to market quickly, as Kun Thanapoom was saying, like don't dwell too much, but like go quickly, so we can you know, we can see and pivot much faster.
And there's a point I can add to Kun Nadia as well. So in a lot of times I've seen it's a reflex from the insurer side as well. Like there's a new way of doing things now, and first response automatically is, okay, does OIC allow that? Right, it's the first thing that comes to mind when when IT and tech initiative arises and in question. So one thing that I have seen OIC did is they respond to tech inquiries. So which actually they don't need to do, because some rules or some regulation, if there's not clearly stated that you cannot do certain things, then you shouldn't need to ask regulator about it, right? But still, it's a reflex that comes in terms of when you think about compliance, and okay, like we need to worry about first, okay, do they allow or not? So this really helps if we can ask them, it's a InsurTech related question, am I allowed to do this? And if OIC can respond quickly, then I think it removes some of the barrier that we have seen. And yeah, I've seen them started doing that. So actually one way to help.
Yeah. Thank you. I also agree that we can really appreciate the OIC effort in supporting InsurTech. There's been a lot of great movements from the regulator side, the insurance sandbox that Nadia has mentioned, all the online sale regulations. We know for a fact that the laws and regulations will never catch up or go ahead of technology, but the fact that the regulator is being very supportive is quite promising for InsurTech in Thailand. Kun Jeremy, I actually have a question for you. So in Thailand, when we talk about InsurTech, a lot of people think that it's more of like the front end technology. So it focuses on sell to the customers. But in your opinion, what do you think has been the most popular type of InsurTech that is adopted by insurance company, and what do you think the Thai insurance company the Thai insurance industry can have more information as to type of InsurTech?
Yeah, so I think we did a scan across the developing world of InsurTech's current in operation in 2017, and then an update in 2019. So we found a sample of around 300 InsurTechs across the world. And we basically found that the biggest portion of them fall into sort of tech-enabled partnerships. So when you look at digital platforms, for example, and the opportunities to partner with insurance providers to distribute insurance, some form of insurance products, I think those are really common. The other one is around sort of the back-end administration and efficiency, so B2B solutions, which I think is really important. So those two were actually the most prevalent that we found around sort of consumer-facing platforms, but then also internal-facing platforms, which come in many different varieties, but kind of provide the admin systems and processes at the back end for insurers, or even or other providers of insurance services. I think some of the other things that I think are less prevalent in terms of number, but I think really interesting in terms of the opportunity that they create, is around new data and analytics. So I think that's I'm not sure how developed that is in the Thai industry. It'll be great to hear. But certainly from across the world, I think increasingly we're obviously able to collect a lot of data through the different types of technologies, how we engage with each other. But how that data is analyzed and actually used is still quite limited, and particularly in many of the insurers or insurance industry across the developing world, at least, there's often really patchy data and limited data, both on consumers and on the nature of risks that exist. So I think that building up that capability to better collect, but then particularly analyze and use that data to inform risk models, to inform our understanding of consumers, to all those type of components, I think is a really big opportunity that, as much as it's talked about a lot, and is certainly there's technology companies who are doing huge amounts of data. From my experience, at least in the developing world, insurers and even the financial sector is still relatively early stages there. There's certainly some examples of people who have really made big progress, but I think for the most part, I think that's an area of quite a significant opportunity.
Thank you. And Kun Thanapoom, just wanted to hear your thought. If you can pick one function of InsurTech that you think is really the most efficient function, what do you think would be?
So efficiency. So this is not specific to insurance, right? But
Yep.
The opportunity for automation and for incumbent specifically, automation and increase efficiency kind of project, like RPA or AI in terms of business process management system, something that automates and get people out of the loop.
Mm-hmm.
Get manual process out of the loop is the low hanging fruit, and it can apply across organization. And yeah, so certainly when we talk about efficiency and cost reduction and sustainability, it's very ripe for to realize the benefit of using software and automation and API to digital transform. Basically, all the paper should be going away, and the time to response to any customer request or needs then will get slashed to instant.
Thank you. That's actually right, because now we want everything to be automated and we want to have everything real time, right? Nadia, just want to hear your view from the customer perspective. Do you think when the company employ the automation and real-time function, do you think that helps with the customer satisfaction and helps differentiate incumbents in terms of insurance company from other existing companies?
I think it does, but I probably need to look at it from many different angles, right? So for example, claim submissions or changing, your particulars or things like that, that will definitely kind of help, and also like decrease the cost for the company. But I think another piece that is very interesting, and I just would like to add on to Kun Thanapoom's kind of like point, is that insurance, especially during the delivery process or the kind of like onboarding process, it's very hard, especially for life and health, right? That you can completely take human out of the loop. So to me, another piece that will be very interesting is like human machine automation or augmentation. How you can help both customer and seller do their thing better. So the seller or the agents or the banker could have some sort of machine digital experience that links them to the the kind of the customer, right, that they are working with. And also another part is like when customer have questions they need to be able to, get the answer quickly. So how can, like the company or the agents do their job better in that sense? So I think augmentation is something that is very key in our business.
Thank you. Jeremy, since Nadia spoke a bit about the AI and human involvement in the process. So in Thailand, a lot of people say that we're used to really having connections with people. For example, with the insurance company, with the agents and brokers. Do you think that is something that can change over time, or it has to go step by step from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough question to kind of know. I think in future, I suspect that we will be able to move in that direction. I would certainly strongly support the points around the augmentation of that consumer delivery is really important. I think aspects like natural language processing is incredibly important across the developing world, where we have a vast range of languages that are, not that mainstream and not often easily translated. It's kind of astonishing to me how feasible it is to, for example, engage with different people in French or in Spanish and in some of the mainstream languages that I'm not fluent in. But it's a completely different story when you look at the local languages across Africa, across Asia, that where those type of tools just don't exist. So I think that's really important. And I think that on top, I do think though, I think that's a really important part of it. So that's like a prerequisite to be able to being able to unlock this at all, I think. But then I think, more explicitly responding to your question, I think there's been really interesting successes using chatbots. So examples of where, people aren't even aware that they're engaging with a chatbot, to the point where, there was a Silicon Valley firm that I chatted to a couple of years ago, who said that with their chatbot, they actually found that they had the highest volume of messages into that chatbot on Christmas Day, because people were wishing the chatbots have Merry Christmas. So it kind of was able to actually form quite good, close personal relationships with the customers who were engaging with it. So I think that there is the opportunity to begin to shift that. And I think certainly, with the growth of remote services, the increasing digitalization of services across the economy, the rapid rise of e-commerce, and obviously the pandemic has accelerated that across the world. I do think people are increasingly more comfortable in engaging remotely. I do think there's probably a long way to go in completely eliminating the human element, because especially a product like insurance that does require a high level of trust, and has a very long feedback loop. So it's pretty hard to build that trust. Does make it quite tricky to sell without that, at least on a voluntary basis, without that in-person interaction. But I think there is examples that indicate that maybe over time this can become better. And I also think this is the other part, going back to the first points we made around what InsurTech does, incorporating and integrating insurance solutions more directly and more effectively into sort of real needs that people have within the real economy, integrating it with their health solutions, or integrating it with their, SME or enterprise type day-to-day businesses. I think that's a way in which it becomes less about just the insurance policy, which is hard to sell and people often don't trust, and more about, that part of a bundle of solutions that people do rely on, and then and especially I think on-demand insurance, breaking it down into bite-sized pieces, part of that as well, to improving those feedback loops.
Thank you.
I think I want to add a little bit more. So I think it's a very good. It's what I would like to see have development in this area more quickly. because it's not only about efficiency, right? It's also about that flexibility and agility. Okay, like we have new challenge, new risk to cover, right? And InsurTech, if happen across the ecosystem, right, along the supply chain, you know, or the outsource, or the not only in insurance companies, right, but you know, maybe healthcare partner or third-party administrator, maybe or the others, vendor and suppliers, and you know, if everything can be connected through APIs, and also in the each department, what I would like to see is how the business is really transformed into, you know, a digital first approach, and you know, from product creation to distribution to claim. I've yet to see a very advanced example of how the integration can happen very seamlessly inside and outside, and that's the case study that we have seen from abroad, that if really done well, it has the potential to transform the business. You know, one example is you can usually it is notoriously how long it takes to from start to release the new product from insurance, right? 6 to 9 months, and it's potential that you can reduce it to 6 weeks, and in order for that to happen, the you know, every party in the supply chain needs to kind of like transform and integrate well together.
Thank you, Khun Thanapoom. Since you talk a bit about the business transformation, could I have you view what is the most challenging aspect of the business transformation in terms of turning the business to be completely digital?
Oh, for me, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's many people say this. Of course, it's the people element and the culture and the way of thinking. So it needs to start from the leadership level, and I think it has to be a very strong signal that, okay, we are going to have this initiative, right? And from the start, it has to feel like not IT at all, if possible. I think that's my experience. If it sounds like an IT project, then probably it is one, and not going to be very impactful. Hopefully it's not that way, but I think when we think about IT, we don't think about the impact enough, or the alignment between many people who involve don't have the same goal, right? So one team might IT might think about project deadline, and business of course has to think about impact and or cost reduction or revenue or new opportunity, and a lot of time there are distances between the two, right? Tech and biz, and so I think one key thing that needs to be addressed is how to align these two ingredients. Both are very important, both are critical, right? And how to make them have the same goal. Adoption can be one goal for both sides, and yeah, the signal that needs to be sent out that this is going to be different is very important for incumbent, for digital transformation. And yeah, just think of anything that can reduce the distance. When distance, I mean, like it's so the team that actually produce the tech, right, and the people that actually use the product, they don't know each other at all, and they don't know that the tech team doesn't know how are the lives of the user it will be impacted by the product that they build. In a lot of times, it's very sad to have this situation, right? And I think that's also a key difference when you see a new initiative or a new company or some team that know this from day one, that okay, we need to drive this together, and okay, we have the same goal, right? And text is finally infused into the business team as a single unit, right? And kind of like drive this together. So I think this is the first part, and I think the rest will kind of like figure it out on its own. Like Nadia said, we have to get our hands dirty, right? So I think that's the way.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. Recently, we have been going through these changes, and the structure of the team that Kun Thanapoom mentioned is something that we experienced firsthand, and I can vouch that that is the only way to go, because you as a business team cannot understand your own business journey, and then if you kind of give a brief away and then you think that some miracle will happen, it will not happen, right? So the business, the tech, the UX UI, the user needs to be part of the experience. They need to know everything inside out. So like the so-called product owner is really a product owner, from the design to the delivery, even to the sales, because after you launch, that's not the end, right? You need to understand what went wrong and what is right in order to kind of like continuously improve that platform, because that platform is just like a baby. It needs to grow. So the day that you think once you launch, it's finished, that baby will definitely die. And I think we've seen it, right? So and Kun Thanapoom was saying before that sometimes it takes like 6 to 9 months, after like adopting such development program, and even the kind of like tech to business mindset, we were able to deliver some new products within like 4 to 6 weeks, which is very different from what we have seen or done before. And we don't just focus on the system anymore, and we've spent much of our time designing the customer journey and not like the system or how to create that from scratch. Yeah, and I think that really helps. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the insight. As a leader in the organization, I'm sure that's a big point to tackle, to really connect all the team members from starting to finish, because it's the whole team that's going to have to work on the product and also customer service. We're reaching the end of the session, so we have one question from the audience to each of you. So the question is, beside the insurance market, what could be another industry that would highly benefit from adopting InsurTech? And if I may, Kun Jeremy, can I have your thought on this, please?
Yeah, sure. And I'll try and keep it brief. But I think I struggle to see too many industries that can't benefit from InsurTech, to be honest. I think, what we said at the beginning, InsurTech is really about thinking about it is really about considering developing holistic solutions to build resilience and deal with risk, which really applies across different industries. I'll briefly give one example that I think is such a good illustration of how this can manifest within individual sectors, but also for real economy outcomes for people. So one of my favorite examples in the InsurTech space is Parcel, which provides IoT sensors to monitor atmospheric conditions within containers within a value chain. So in particular for a cold chain. And they started off with a pilot project in Côte d'Ivoire, in Ivory Coast, to monitor the cocoa that was being transported from there all the way to buyers in Europe and the rest of the world. And they found that by monitoring the cold chain throughout, they were able to reduce spoilage of the cocoa product by about around 30%, which is substantial. But they then went on to partner with AXA last year and now offer a sensor to monitor vaccines and the distribution of vaccines into different countries. It's obviously topical now, but in many parts of the developing world, pharmaceutical companies were unwilling to distribute their vaccines to countries because the cold chains were so unreliable that they lost so many of those vaccines before they actually reached the people who needed them. And insurers were not willing to provide insurance because it was essentially an uninsurable risk because, again, the cold chains were so unreliable. By introducing this technology, they've been able to provide the certainty and the proactiveness around monitoring those cold chains in real time, which means that insurers are now willing, AXA is now willing to insure that risk, which in turn means that the pharmaceutical companies are willing to distribute those vaccines to reach people. So the introduction of this technology solution, and it starts from a real economy solution that's applied to an insurance problem. This introduction of this technology solution has unlocked a market that previously didn't exist at all in some countries. Like in many Central African countries, these vaccines were simply not being distributed at all. So it's unlocked a brand new market and, of course, had important impacts for people on the ground as well.
Thank you. That's very good input.
Yeah, I must say that I really agree with Jeremy. Like, there's no industry that wouldn't benefit, right? If it concerns human and things that concerns humans as well, not just human beings, but things that surrounds us, everything can benefit. And I think the example Jeremy gave is so brilliant, right? Things that you think that are uninsurable can suddenly be insured, and like, even instead of doing one pricing for all and treating everybody equally and the same, why should you? Well, equality is great, but not when it comes to when you have to pay premium or when you have to pay a certain price, right? So, like, for example, healthcare, it is another kind of industry that would definitely benefit from this. The incentives are so aligned. Hospitals and healthcare providers would like their patients and customers to have well coverage, right? The government also wants the populations to be well insured, but right now everybody is being treated the same. If you are 35-year-old, a 40-year-old male, you pay the same price. But actually, your body profile is very different. One guy might be super fit, the other guy might not be so fit. So why should the super fit guy pay the same price as not so fit guy? And I think all of these things, and to Jeremy's earlier point, the ability to capture all these data and to crunch these data and to kind of like do the offering, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. There's just so much more opportunity to embed all of these, things together and really create that change, so people can really enjoy and be incentivized, right, to access something that's meaningful to them.
Thank you. Thanapoom, any final thoughts for this?
Just want to touch on briefly on the very quite not yet exists in the big scale part of insurance, which is cybersecurity. Hopefully there will be more development, but I think the need arises because of we have risk, right? And the risk from the new ones are from basically advanced in technology. So I want to point out that cybersecurity risks and insurance is very intertwined, right? Because we have AI, right? And AI is getting better and better. And there's AI criminal, right? The bad AI that helps hackers and help attack our cybersecurity system. And because of that AI, right? Of course, there's a good AI that needs to fight against the bad ones, but there will always be some risk left in the future, as a very, very significant and constant and widespread. So it's because we all have digital system, right? We all have online system, so it has to be insured somehow. And still very young and early space, yeah, but is an opportunity for InsurTech, definitely.
Yeah. So it's a very exciting time for us all to see what are the opportunities to come in the Thai insurance industry. So we have reached the end of our sessions today. I really wish we had more time to discuss more in details. But for today, I believe all the three speakers have given us very valuable information and insights from someone who is really in the field of InsurTech. And on behalf of the Office of Insurance Commission and Texas Media, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Kun Nadia, Kun Jeremy, and Kun Thanapoom for joining us today. And I trust that we would hope to see more of InsurTech movement in Thailand. And thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.